All right, just hit record.
And I started out probably about in year of 2000, started, studying nutrition. And my daughter was born in 2000. We didn't notice any symptoms, right away. They kind of came later. But she was having some stuff probably about, I started studying nutrition in 2000, and about 5 or 6 years later, about 6 years old, she was showing some just things that just weren't quite right. I took her to doctor after doctor. All anybody wanted to do was label this, try this med, label her this. I just knew there was just something with the brain, that the neurons in the brain just weren't firing correctly. And I'm like, if I could just get everything firing correctly, she would be better. So I kind of set out a mission on myself to, you got to be an advocate for your kid, to just figure it out. And I started playing around with foods, educating myself, studying nutrition, constantly. I mean, I was just like a sponge, constantly getting this certificate, different things. And everything that I did with her was an improvement. And once upon a time, things were so bad with her. We were having major behaviors at school. She was hitting other kids. I mean, the child just didn't feel good. And, the more foods that I started restricting and replacing and alternatives, just symptoms just started disappearing. She couldn't read or write. We had to use a processor at school. She refused to write. And when you watched her write, it was actually the bearing down of the hand was actually uncomfortable because she didn't feel good. But nobody never associates any of those things with what we're eating as to why we're not feeling good. And I started pulling sugars. I started pulling starches, just making little changes. And she would get better. And I would tell like family members that she was getting better. And then we would go to Christmas or we would go to Thanksgiving and I would let her partake. And I'm like, all the symptoms would just come back. And everybody's like, she's not getting better. And nobody never believed you because they didn't see what you saw. So then I was like, you know what? I need to be an advocate for my child, even at family functions. I need to just say, look, she's not eating it. Sorry, we can't do this, because grandparents and family are like, oh, it's just a little cookie. It's just a little piece of fudge.
Right.
But that little cookie or that little piece of fudge was 2 days of hell for this child.
Mm.
And not only hell for the child, hell for the family, hell for me, all these kind of things. Sure. And I mean, I could handle it because I was used to it and knew how to deal with it and how to turn it around, but I didn't have to. And so when I started telling everybody, I would just bring things for her. I mean, there were alternatives to making cookies and treats and things like that. And if we went to a birthday party, I would bring things. And we did that for a very, very long time until she got to the point where a little mishap doesn't really affect her. Mm. But it used to. I mean, it used to affect her really, really bad. Well, after about 2 years of just making major, major changes, one day she went up to the teacher and she said, I want a pencil, and I don't want this processor anymore. So she just gave it back. Told him, she said, I don't need it, don't use it, don't need it. That's her little slogan when she doesn't want something. And after that, she just started writing everything. And you could see as she's writing, you could see that it was more comfortable for her to write. And so she came home and she started just reading books like crazy and just started reading and started catching up for all the things that she had missed during that time. So we stayed low carb for a very, very long time. And then we kind of dabbled into keto a little bit. I think when people get into keto per se, I think keto is good if you keep protein higher. But I think where people are getting into trouble is when they restrict the protein and keep the fat too high, and you're just not getting enough protein for what the body needs. I mean, our body needs protein, and if it doesn't get it, it's going to pull from different areas of the body.
Sure.
And that's what you see as people are aging. You know, people start getting older and they end up, you know, hunchback, no posture. It's lack of protein. You can correct it so fast.
Yeah.
And so with her, we kept the protein really, really high. And close to about 2 years ago, I started dabbling with carnivore. And I was just like, let's just try it. So I tried it for myself first. And I was like, you know, what the heck, 30 days, let's just try it 30 days. Well, that 30 days of feeling really, really good went by so fast. So it turned into 60 days, and it turned into 90 days. And so after I had a little bit underneath my belt, I thought, let's just pull the little bit of veg that she's eating. And really all she liked anyway was salad, you know, basically lettuce, cucumbers, celery. And that's really it. Everything else would have been kind of putting it in something to kind of trick her to eat it. And she really didn't care. And I kind of noticed that she was always eating those things last. She was always gravitating towards the meat first. And so I just started giving her more meat, and just more improvements came. You know, even the little bit of behaviors that we were having ever so often vanished. And she's on the dance line at her typical high school. Most autistic children can't do that. And it's major practice, and 4 nights of, you know, when they do their big concert, just major dancing, lots of hours being there. And she loves every minute of it. And not only that, she works at school. They do a vocational program to, you know, help the children to learn how to work. And not only one job that she has, most kids only have one job starting this, but because she was so good last year, the librarian wanted to keep her as her assistant. So now she has the librarian assistant, and then she also helps out at the middle school in the cafeteria. And she's just so into it. She loves it. She loves school. She, you know, gets up every morning. I mean, she's one of those children that love to go to school, love to learn, know that school is about learning. We see very, very little of the behaviors. Once in a blue moon, she might partake in, you know, something at school, and she comes home a little bit irritable, but I can see the irritability right when she walks to the door. And so I just give her a little more meat and fat, and she's good to go. So it really and truly makes a difference. So that's just kind of where we are. And so I did carnivore for myself for like 6 months. And then I kind of went for like a month, a little more like keto based, and brought back more of the vegetables. I felt okay in the beginning, but after about a month, I was having like some bloating in my stomach and some different things. And I'm like, you know what? I really don't care about these vegetables anyway. They really don't even taste that good. So why am I even forcing this?
Right. Yeah, I did the same thing. I was keto for almost a year, and then I just kind of gravitated towards carnivore, and I gave it a try, and I liked it. And then I went back to keto for a month and I didn't feel as good. So I cut out the vegetables, and then I've been playing with the fat to protein ratio kind of ever since. And I think in the beginning, the extra fat helps people adapt to metabolizing the fat, but then I think most people benefit from raising the protein levels. And, you know, I think most people don't really need to stay in a state of ketosis, you know, or clinical ketosis where their blood levels are 2.0 or higher. I think, you know, obviously for people who have seizures or something like that, they probably do. Or in my case, I had autoimmune disease, so that actually helped heal it up. But I don't think I need to stay there forever. So eating a higher protein diet probably is better on average, I would say.
Right. I think that the people that are really, really super, super lean, say that your body fat's really, really low, they can get away with more fat.
Mm.
Like my son is super, super lean. I mean, he's like 6'1", and we're pushing to stay at 150 pounds because he grew so tall so fast.
Mm.
Like his body just really couldn't catch up. But because his body fat's so low, even if he misses one meal, it's like a 5-pound loss.
Wow.
Because of his body fat being so low. So like for him, he does better with a lot of protein, but also he needs a lot of fat. And even my daughter Amberly that has autism, she's like 5'2" and 107 pounds, but extremely lean. And that child has a really, really high metabolism because she's very active and she's busy and she's constantly moving and doing. I mean, she's not a kid that's going to sit down and play video games 24/7. If she's playing a video game or she's even watching something, she's moving at the time that she's doing that. So for her, she can eat a lot of calories and a lot of fat and still stay extremely lean. So I think it's kind of more of an individualized. For me, I kind of do like a mixed bag. I do like some lean proteins and then I do like some fatty proteins, but it kind of balances out. But I've noticed that for me, if I do more fattier proteins, then I can't eat as much protein. And I want to eat as much protein as I can because, you know, as you get older, you want to continue to put on lean muscle. You don't want to have posture problems. And, you know, I turned 50 in October and it's like, I don't want to have those issues. I mean, you walk into nursing homes and you see people and you see what they eat. I mean, if you walk into a nursing home, I mean, it's sweets galore and nobody cares if you eat anything other than that.
Yeah, they're feeding them Jello and cereal and stuff like that all the time. You know, it's all loaded with sugar and stuff like that. Yeah.
But it's funny because we were actually out on the boat with some friends on Sunday, and we all went and ate lunch afterwards. Well, when I go to eat lunch somewhere, I'm going to get some kind of protein, you know, minus the bun. I'm going to dissect this and dissect that. And I mean, I'm used to it. I've done it for years and years and years. It's normal to me to do that. And now since people are becoming more aware of this, you know, you're not looked at as crazy. But, you know, I remember when I started doing it before, it was like, okay, you know, people are looking at you like you got 5 heads. And so what I did is I asked a couple people that were with us after they got finished eating. I said, how do you feel eating that? And they both said they felt horrible. And this was big old burgers with huge, huge buns, which the bun is like bigger than the burger, and fries and soda and the whole 9 yards. And all of them said that they felt very, very bloated in the upper part of the stomach underneath the breastbone. Well, a lot of times people think the stomach is the lower part, and it's not. Your stomach is up high underneath your breastbone. Well, if your food is not digesting and it's lodging right underneath the breastbone, that's very, very uncomfortable, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
And one thing I've noticed is when you eat all protein and you don't eat the starches and the carbs, you don't have that feeling underneath the breastbone anymore. Your food just kind of goes down into the lower part, into the intestinals, and, you know, getting ready to digest to do what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, I've noticed the same thing. You don't get that Thanksgiving Day sort of feast burnout if you don't eat all the starchy stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
You're not in a food coma.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and that's what the 2 guys actually said. They said that, you know, I'm so tired, I want to go home and take a nap. And, you know, and I said, do you feel like you're in a food coma? He said, yeah, that's exactly it. So it was just kind of cool just to be able to ask other people just at random, you know. And, I mean, you could just see it. I mean, you could listen to your body and, I mean, you know.
Yeah, I think not feeling well has become normal. You know, people are used to feeling strange or uncomfortable after they eat. And then when you get on a diet that works really well for you, you realize, man, I don't have to feel like that all the time, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on that one. So you want to give us some tips on feeding a family?
Well, the
Uh,
best thing, especially when you're working with children, is to replace. Don't, it's your language and how you handle it. And it's like, your children can have nachos, but replace them with cheese chips or pork rinds and still let them have those nachos. They can have pizza. I mean, I've done a meat crust pizza. It's super, super easy for years and years. And you can do any type of ground meat. Right now, I'm using Italian turkey sausage for mine. And you basically you've got 2 pounds of meat and you layer it in a oblong pan that has sides so it protects the grease from draining off. And I mean, you make a huge pizza. You bake the meat first on 425 for 10 minutes. And then you let it cool just a little bit. And then you layer it. And then you put it back in the oven for another 10 minutes. And you can put pepperoni on it. You can put bacon on it. Chicken, just whatever you like. And I've done that for years. And it's been a huge hit for my family, anybody I've shared it with, all of my clients, everybody loves it because who doesn't love pizza?
right. Nobody I know doesn't like
But
pizza.
yeah, but think about it too. What's the best part of the pizza? Is the bread the best part of the pizza?
No.
If
Bread,
you just only could eat the plain bread without any of the
right.
toppings, would you really even eat pizza? I doubt it.
Yeah, bread is just bread. It's all that good stuff
Exactly.
on top. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, I stole some shots from Facebook of some of the food you prepared, and let me see if I can share this, and then we can talk about some of these wonderful items. I assume can you see this here? This is just a screenshot of the Keto for Autism group that Kevin Van Dorn has.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I noticed you're pretty active on that group.
Yeah, he asked me a little while back to help him with moderating the group, and I was like, it's a small group. It
Sure.
would be not a whole lot of work to do or whatever, and I could help him out a little bit there.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah, I think so.
I think him and I are both fortunate because a lot of our groups are pretty small because I have the autistic carnivore group and the ketogenic fasting project, and I really have very few problems. So it's really a matter of just generating some conversation and putting up some content. So, but it's great. You're active on there and you have a lot of really good tips. I mean, when it comes down to it, I think a lot of people are looking for suggestions on how to prepare food or maybe create substitutes. So I think
Right.
that really is the majority of what people find helpful, actually.
Well, I think that is the way to start because a lot of times people get it in their mind they can't ever have something and they basically sabotage themselves before they even start. So if you tell yourself, I can't have this. Well, when can I have this? Well, when can I have, it doesn't work. You have to come up with replacements of the things that you like. Get used to those things, make changes in those things, and realize that these things are actually really good. And when you do, you don't feel deprived. You're able to have a pizza, you're able to have nachos, you're able to have a burger with a bun. I mean, last night I made those burger buns for 6 people. Now, yes, that was a little bit of work because you're using a tiny little small griddle. But my son had his girlfriend over last night, and I didn't know if I was going to have enough food to feed everybody. So I'm like, okay, well, if I make these buns, they're very, very filling. I mean, they are. They're very filling because it's made with an egg and Parmesan and a little bit of mozzarella. but you can't even taste the egg. I mean, it's like a little cheese bread bun,
Hmm.
and it works, you know?
Yeah, I've noticed that because I used to make like almost like a tortilla or a flatbread out of just dried cheese, and it's
Yep.
extremely filling.
Yep.
You have a
I've
couple of
done
those and you're
where
done.
you just melt cheese or whatever, and I've put like taco meat and made like little taco burrito things or whatever. And that's been a huge hit.
Could
You
you
know, it's just an alternative to something that's not so good for you.
Can you see this picture on the screen? I believe this is one of your creations. A burger with the bread made from Parmesan, egg, and mozzarella.
Yep, that's one of the ones I made last night.
Oh, great.
And it
Yeah,
was
I think
very, very good. And I did the same thing about a week ago and turned it into a little pizza, because when I made the bread the first time, I was like, you know, this tastes like cheese bread, like you just got from like a pizza place. And I'm like, okay, well, this will make a great pizza. Let's go for it.
I think you posted this one recently as well. I
Yeah,
think
that was the one last night. That's what the kids had last night for dinner.
and these are like some Parmesan chips or something that you made.
Those are actually the Wisp chips that you can actually purchase in a bag.
Ah,
And all they are is like cheese made into a chip.
I believe I've
So
had
that
those.
gives you an alternative to be able to purchase something. I can get them at my local grocery store. I know that Amazon carries them as well. But that's a great thing. Like if you're at the beach, you're on the lake, you're, you know, on the go, you're traveling or whatever, and you need a healthy snack. You know, that's an option, because, you know, sometimes we need that.
Yeah, I think they actually sell those at Sam's Club. I think I bought those before.
Okay, well, good.
Yeah, so they're pretty available.
See, they sell them at my local grocery store, and I'm in Texas, and the food quality here is a lot better. And honestly, it's a lot cheaper here because we moved
Really
from Georgia 2 years ago, and food is a lot cheaper here.
nice. That's good to know. Yeah, it's good to know that there's good food out there. That's for sure.
Exactly.
So this is a staple, I'd imagine, bacon and
Yeah,
egg.
so that's like, you know, that could be a typical breakfast. I alternate, like with my daughter, she either has like bacon and sausage for breakfast, or she does bacon and eggs. And my kids, the older two, they alternate as well. Like, you know, they just kind of learn, but they make their own food and do what they want to do.
This is one of your pizza creations, your meat crust pizza.
Yep, that's the beloved, you know, meat crust pizza. And it's very filling. I mean, I would say, you know, 2 small squares and you're full. You might want more because it tastes so good,
Uh,
but you don't really need it. I mean, you're full with 2 pieces for sure.
Excellent. Yeah. Yeah, these types of foods are very satisfying.
Right. And it's even better, like, even like the next day, because the flavors just kind of adhere to it more. So it's more flavorful. But what I do when I have leftovers is I just go ahead, wrap it up, put it in the freezer. So then that way, if you don't eat it the next day, then it doesn't go bad, and you've got it in the freezer to defrost for another day. And it works very well.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times, you know, regular pizza is better the second day. So I can only imagine
Exactly.
meat,
Yeah,
cheese.
we don't throw away any meat. And the only produce I buy is lettuce for my husband and my son, and that's it.
Yeah, and it seems
So
like
it's pretty easy.
lettuce is pretty neutral. You know, I noticed
Yeah.
even a lot of like bodybuilders and stuff like that that are really watching what they eat to get cut fat or whatever. They'll tend to kind of just add in some chopped lettuce just so they're eating something else,
Right.
you know,
Exactly.
because it doesn't seem to really have too much negative effect. So
Well, that's like when I was eating more vegetables, I was encouraging my husband to eat more vegetables. Like we were making stuff like cauliflower rice and different things, and he was
sure.
liking it. But really, when it comes down to it, hands down, he really only likes salad. So nobody else is really eating them. So I'm just not even going to push it. If he likes salad, then he can have salad every night. Fine with me. I mean, lettuce is actually better anyway because it's lower carb than, like you're going cauliflower and broccoli and, things like that.
Yeah, it's kind of just water.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I drink enough water. I'm good. I don't need it.
You're right. So this casserole, is this like a lasagna creation you got? Can you
Yeah, I think that was the lasagna thing that I did just recently. And and that was a girl that I follow on Instagram was making it. And I was like, man, that looks really, really good. And she said it was a protein lasagna, and she got it from Marie Emmerich's book. And apparently, I guess she created it for her two boys, for some kind of kid-friendly, lasagna or whatever, just using sandwich meat for the noodles. So I didn't read her recipe, but when the girl that I follow on Instagram was telling me that she just uses sandwich meat for the noodles and follows her own, lasagna recipe. And I was like, okay, well, I'll just follow my own lasagna recipe and use the sandwich meat. So I used a mixture of natural ham and then a natural turkey. So I did like a layer of ham in the center and then the turkey on the outer part, just to kind of jazz it up a little bit and do something different. And I even added bacon to the mix. So that was something a little bit different, but it was a huge hit. My husband did not even know it was sandwich meat, and I didn't even tell him until afterwards because, sandwich meat, come on, lasagna, really? Okay. So when I did that, it gave me the idea. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it again, but I'm going to use the sandwich meat and make like kind of a manicotti or like a stuffed shell next time. I haven't done it yet because the lasagna was just a couple weeks ago. Lasagna is not something you eat like every week.
Hope not.
But it was really good. It was
it looks good.
And we've got plenty of that in the freezer too, because anytime there's leftovers, it just goes in the freezer.
Very practical. Oh, there's the finished picture.
Yeah, it was really good. I mean, the whole entire family loved it. So
this is another shot of your meat pizza, your meat crust pizza.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing with the meat crust pizza, you can do whatever you want with it. You could do like garlic chicken, you could do, chicken bacon ranch, your typical pizza, pepperoni. Lately, I've been doing more of a sausage bacon just to kind of change it up a little bit, then adding the pepperoni on there.
Mm. Yeah, a little sausage sounds good.
Yeah.
And then I believe this is some sort of waffle bread.
Yeah, that's when I first started making the Parmesan bread. And then it was funny because I was showing my son how these little gadgets work. And originally that's what I got it for, is because he makes a pancake batter. And for him, we use unflavored protein powder and like cream cheese and egg and, heavy cream. And it's just a real hefty, pancake batter that'll turn into waffle, and he can flavor it up however he wants. And he really likes it. So originally I bought these little waffle iron and griddles for him because he's always having a hard time turning the pancakes. When you start like playing around with different ingredients or whatever, you have to wait till the pancake is exactly ready to turn, or your pancakes can all fall apart.
Right.
So the original reason why I bought it was for him. And then I started playing around with it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this thing is great. It does everything. So I started sharing it with a lot of people and, sharing it with clients and so forth. And everybody loves it. I mean, it's just a huge, huge hit for everybody.
Yeah, I've got a little video on waffle iron type bread creations coming up here pretty quick. Every time somebody posts something like that, people seem interested. So we're going to try and work on some videos for that, because I think everybody would enjoy that.
Oh,
nice
yeah.
to have some.
Well, originally where I got the waffle, the girl on Instagram called, her name's Keto Oki, and everybody was talking about it, and they were talking about this waffle. And so she said that one day she was just playing around and she wanted to make an egg with some cheese, and she said she was just being lazy, so she just made it and poured it on her waffle iron, and she said that she realized that it made a nice crispy waffle.
Mm.
But the kicker is you have to put the cheese down before you put the egg mixture in order to get the crispiness like a frozen waffle. And so she kind of started that, and then I ended up buying, like I said, the griddle for my son for pancakes. And then I thought, I wonder if I can take something similar and do the cheese and see if it comes with like a rounder type bread. And so Saturday, I was just sitting there and I was like, I wonder if I can turn the Parmesan, egg mozzarella bread into a bagel. And, you're just sitting there, you're just getting kind of creative or whatever on a Saturday morning. And I started playing around with it. And then I was like, okay, well, in order to make it look like a bagel, it needs a hole in the center. What do I have to put a hole in for the center? And I was like, okay, let me just think. And so I went in the pantry and I was like, okay, apple cider vinegar cap, that'll work. And so I put the hole in the center of the bagel. And so I posted it. And within minutes of posting it, I was getting all these messages. Oh my God, you made a bagel. How'd you do that? Da, 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 da. A bagel. You're telling me I can have a bagel? So people were literally in their kitchen making it. And they were like, oh my gosh, I get to have a bagel now. I can like make a bunch of these and take them for work in the morning. So people were getting really, really excited. And that's really what it takes, is everybody working together as a community to get that excitement going and creating things and sharing things.
Yeah, that's one of the things we've been working on, is trying to build a community. It's kind of how do you help people increase the quality of life,
Yeah.
So my group, Autistic Carnivores, kind of half high functioning adults and half parents, grandparents, and teachers and stuff like that are all sort of curious on how, one, how the diet affects people, and two, how to bring the diet to people who could benefit from it. So
right.
This probably is some of the most powerful ways to do it, is to have creations like this that interest people,
Right. Well, like for my son, I created the pancake and bowl for him a long time ago using unflavored protein powder. And not only using that, a scoop of unflavored protein powder is just whey powder. So, that's all it is. And you're looking at 24 grams of protein. So it's another way to get a lot of protein because, especially someone that has autism, or even like a finicky kid that's texture funny, has the texture issues or whatever, everybody's going to like a cookie, or everybody's going to like a pancake or a waffle. Hands down, nobody's really going to say, oh, I don't like waffles. That's what these kids live on. They live on junk. Yeah. And when I started my business a long time ago, that was the original business I started, was diet and nutrition for special needs children. And it was very, very successful. I could see a difference in children's behaviors, the hand flapping and the isolation and the outbursts and the compulsions and stuff within days of just removing these foods that they were so addicted to.
So do you do coaching now? Do you help people with this now?
I do. And, but I kind of took it a little bit further. I do not just children. I do adults as well. And so like my goal is, when I take on a client, and I only take on 5 clients a month because my major thing is, getting the kids and making sure everything's taken care of and so forth. And right now we have, I have Amberly, which is the one that has autism, and my son just graduated high school. So he's getting ready to go to college this year. And then my daughter's in college. but it's like, I'm trying to figure out, is it easier when they're younger, or is it, easier when they're older, or is it harder when they're older? And so, just, you want to make sure that your kids are learning everything as an adult, because what I see now is even the young adults, they can't be out on their own. They can't afford it. It's very, very difficult right now. And so, like, my daughter's 22 and she's got probably another year of college, but I'm teaching her, you want to make sure you get the college degree so that way you can support yourself when you do get out of college, because at some point you're going to want to be on your own. And so, we go through, like, money and managing money and things like that, because I think it's very, very important for them to, learn to, have a checkbook and a credit card and pay for things and save money and different things. A lot of kids don't get that. And a lot of teachers told me at school or whatever that, especially the kids that are special needs, most of them don't even know anything about managing money or, running a budget or, just self-care and taking care of themselves.
Right. Yeah, it's a big issue, especially with, there's a lot of autistic adults out there that weren't never even diagnosed. People are a
Mm-hmm.
lot more aware, and a lot of programs and attention is given to children. But there's a lot of adults out there that, were never tested. They just figured they were different, and they're out there on their own struggling with that. And a lot of them are very isolated. A lot of them have a lot of health problems. They have a lot of emotional problems and stuff like that. So clearly, when you talk to a lot of high functioning adults, even they have trouble staying employed, and staying in contact with
Right.
people, and it's only I
Yeah,
can't
they're
imagine what it.
really.
Go ahead. Sorry,
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say without the internet and Facebook and stuff like that, I can't imagine that these people would hardly talk to anyone.
Right. That's true. And, too, here in Texas, one of the things they do is, like, they have schooling. So, like, my daughter can actually go to school till 22, but after she graduates from high school, they remove it from the high school and they actually do from 18 to 22 at the college, which is really, really good. But I've seen here, and I don't know if other areas do, but I see a big difference here versus Georgia as far as what they offer for, special needs as far as helping them get independent, be on their own, learn how to work, you know, all of those things. And I mean, you see more and more, or I do here, they're hiring more and they're giving them a chance, like you see it in grocery stores and Lowe's and, different things. And, if you show you're willing to work,
Mm-hmm.
they are giving you a chance. I mean, there's jobs, but it's like, you've got to do that. But I agree with you. It's like, if there's so many people that weren't diagnosed and they're kind of stuck, where do you start? And honestly, I would say if somebody's willing, is the nutrition is where you start, because once you start opening up areas of the brain, then everything just kind of follows.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the tough sell, because I'll talk to people in a lot of different groups, and to suggest that nutrition or trying to go low carb or keto or carnivore might help people is such a foreign idea,
Right.
that you just sound like a crazy person, it seems like, which I get it too, because I remember when I was having good results on keto, and then I found myself just wanting to eat meat, and I thought, God, that that sounds crazy. It's almost like I needed
Yep.
somebody to give me permission to do it. And of course I did it, and then I was like, man, I feel good. I really like this. maybe I just won't
Right.
tell
What's
anybody.
funny, before I started carnivore, like years prior, it's like my body just kind of knew. So like anytime I would tell my clients they could have a cheat meal, like for Christmas or Thanksgiving or whatever, I would put them on a protein and fat day the very next day to get rid of all the Christmas and Thanksgiving damage. And I was like, I was already doing this like years ago. It's like my subconscious mind already knew this is where to go. And like, even when I was doing more low carb with veggies, like I would eat all protein during the day and I would have energy and just feel really, really good and could just go and go and go. And then at night I would eat a big plate of veggies and a little bit of protein. And I'm like, why do I feel tired?
Yeah.
And then it got to the point where the overabundance or whatever, I'm thinking, okay, well, if I eat more vegetables, I'll feel better. And then the overabundance, I'm like, bloated stomach and just not feeling as good. And I'm like, okay, there's something to this.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I mean, we've all been brainwashed that fruits and veggies are supposed to be so good for us. We need all those micronutrients. And then I bet, I think that too, since a lot of autistic people have digestive issues, that
Mm-hmm.
might also be like one of the sort of gimmies in the whole thing is if they start dialing back the plant-based foods and ramp up the meat, they might realize that a lot of those digestive issues kind of resolve, and of course they feel better.
Exactly.
The lowering of anxiety and stuff like that. I think it's
Right.
so tremendous. I think that's where the power is, but it's all about getting people to give it a try, right?
Exactly. But, I mean, even if somebody's not willing to go like, full-fledged, change it all or whatever, just replacing like, say, breakfast or whatever with all protein, because it makes a big difference in your first meal. Like if you're eating an all protein breakfast, then you're not going to be craving carbohydrates and sweets and stuff in the afternoon, and you're not going to be ravishing in the evening. Like, I mean, I've even had clients, put that in the tests. And a lot of times just making that change, it kind of creates more change. So if you kind of start at one meal and then you just kind of let that grow. And, like when I take on a client, when I do a consultation, everybody's different. So you kind of look at the individual, because you also have to make it their lifestyle. So you've got to kind of work with lifestyle and kind of make small changes. But you have to be really careful. You can't say, no, you can't ever have this. Because once that clicks in the mind, oh my God, I can never have this again. So you're telling me I can never have a piece of chocolate cake? No, you can't say that. You can't say never, because never is a long word. It's more of a lifestyle approach, and let's make changes so that we can, get rid of these health problems, quit taking all these medications.
Right.
And once you're able to stop some of this, and they start seeing how much better they feel, and they see the anxiety go away, and they see the depression go away, and they see that they start feeling confident. I mean, I take on, and this is the truth, I can take on a woman especially, sometimes a man, because they'll tell you that they don't feel confident about themselves and so forth. But, men kind of have the tendency to kind of hide that a little more. Women will share it. And within days, you're not even talking to the same person. I mean, this person doesn't feel comfortable about their body. They don't feel good about themselves. They're hiding in, big baggy clothes and all this kind of stuff. And for me, it's so rewarding just to watch the changes.
I'm sure. Yeah. Helping somebody like that would be pretty powerful.
Yeah. And I mean, I've worked with, bodybuilders and, because a lot of times, you think a bodybuilder eats healthy, but a lot of times they don't. Mm-hmm. And, just even like with them, and they start seeing like, more rib definition and more changes, because a lot of times with a bodybuilder, you'll see the mass in the arms and the body, But then if they're not eating correctly, then you start seeing the thicker stomach, and you don't notice it as much because they're thicker, because they have such big arms and legs and all those kind of things. And so, you know, I have my clients like measure. You know, I teach them to let go of the scale, because here's the problem. When you start putting on lean muscle, the scale is going up, whether you like it or not. It's going up. If you're already thin to start with and you start putting on lean muscle, it's going to go up, but you're going to actually be smaller. You're going to be smaller in your clothes. Your measurements are going to be smaller. You're going to look smaller.
Right.
Like, I let that go a long time ago. I stayed in the 120s for like forever and ever. And being small bone structure, I thought that's where I needed to be. Well, my goal before my 50th birthday, what I wanted to put on like 5 pounds of muscle. And so I was very, very careful with how I did it. And I think I put like a little over 4 on. But it's like, you know, I just had it in my mind that it was going to be harder to build muscle after 50 years old. And I don't think it necessarily is, if you're eating enough protein to build that muscle. Because when you look around at other people that are, you know, 50 years old, even more, or whatever, they're doing it.
Right.
It's,
Yeah,
you know, what we take in.
I'm 48 now, and I don't find it any harder to put muscle on.
Yeah.
So, and if
The
anything,
only thing that I see, like for myself, you know, I want to make sure that my waist stays small, because I think that that's important or whatever. And you want to be proportioned. You know, I mean, we all want to look good, and we all want to be lean, and we all want to have, you know, lean muscle or whatever. It makes you feel good if you look good. And so for me, I want to keep my waist thin. It takes a lot of dedication to keep the waist thin at 50 years old.
Do you set any targets as far as how many grams of protein you eat versus your lean mass or anything like that?
Well, I make sure that I eat at least my body weight in ounces. So, you know, right now I fluctuate between 135 and 137. And in order to do that, I need 130 something grams of protein just to maintain any muscle that I have on my body. If I want to put on muscle, then I need a little bit more than that. But some days I might eat 180 grams of protein. Some days I might eat 200. Some days I might eat 125. It just depends. I don't really, I don't measure anything. I don't weigh anything. I don't do any of that kind of stuff. I just eat. You know, and sometimes you go to places and, you know, you don't have the best choices, but there are meat options.
Mm-hmm.
You just go with the meat option.
Yeah.
You know, and like I said, mine balances out, because some days are leaner protein days and some days are higher fat days.
So what about hunger signals? Do you have any sort of like rule of thumb on when you're hungry and you want to, it's time to eat, or you just eat 2 or 3 meals a day?
No, I do listen to my body with that, and I do a little bit of intermittent fasting, and some days I will eat breakfast and some days I don't. So it just kind of depends. If I feel like I need a little bit more energy because I have, you know, more going on, because, okay, so here's the thing. Like, if you're constantly just going all the time, and you're just constantly doing things, well, your body can see that as a stress, because you're going so much and you're not really getting enough rest. And sometimes we have to do that. We don't really have a choice. So you might need a little bit more energy. You might need a little bit more food during that time. So during those times, I will probably eat a breakfast and a lunch and a dinner. But for the most part, I do 2 meals. And I like to do that, so I'm able to get enough protein in my 2 meals. When I do the 3, then I'm not as hungry, and I can't get as much. And I've noticed too, if I eat more of the leaner protein, like I can eat so much more. I think I ate like 15 ounces of a leaner hamburger yesterday for lunch. And then we ended up having hamburgers for dinner. That really wasn't the plan, But the lunch yesterday, because of being on the go and having to go all day, I mean, I was standing up eating lunch, you know, before I had to head out the door again.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to do what you got to do. And the hamburger meat was an easy thing to do. You can have it in the freezer already in a bag. It defrosts very, very quick, and you can cook it very fast. So sometimes that's the quickest. And
yeah,
that's the way it was.
I think ground hamburger or any ground meat really digests faster too. You get that protein in there a little quicker. So yeah, I mean, it's
And
nice
then you
to
feel good. It's like you eat it, and it's like, okay, I'm ready to go. Okay, what do I have to do now?
Yeah, I did the same thing last night. I ate an extra meal. I don't normally, but I was hungry. The dog was looking at me like, I think we need to eat. So I went down. I cooked some hamburger last night myself, and somehow a pound went in a hurry.
Exactly. Well, I feed my dog carnivore as well, and he flourishes. He's like a year and a half now, and it's really weird because he really didn't like dog food in the beginning anyway, and I fed him a clean dog food, and it kind of ended up being just like a snack. And then he got really sick over the summer. Somehow he got some kind of infection or whatever, and the vet didn't catch it, and it went systemic in his body, and he got sick really, really quickly. And so I had to end up taking him to a emergency clinic, and he ended up being hospitalized for a few days.
Wow.
Well, come to find out, the hospital that he was hospitalized, they don't believe in dog food at all. And so they cooked chicken for the dogs. And luckily they did that for him, because when he started feeling better and they started treating the infection, he ate the heck out of the cooked chicken. So at that point I was like, you know what? Forget this dog food. Even though it was a grain-free dog food, he really wasn't eating it much anyway.
Right.
He's a little over 8 pounds. I can just feed him what I eat, and he's happy as can be. And he has energy, and he feels great, and he recovered really quick. They were really amazed at how fast that he recovered from the infection.
I do the same thing. I have 2 dogs, and they both eat meat all the time. They love like the chicken thighs. So, and I know I had a third dog who's gone now, but that dog had almost no teeth and a tiny little mouth. And so I could cook down the bones so that dog could get a little bone too. You know, just I'd cook the chicken thighs in like a crock pot, and then take the meat off the bone, put the bones back in, and cook it a little longer. And then they were soft enough that even the dog with almost no teeth could eat some bone, which they really seems to help them thrive. So
well, I give him like steak bones and all this kind of stuff, but because he's so little, I mean, he gnaws on a steak bone forever, you know, like a big, you know, T-bone or whatever, but you know, it's good for him.
Right. Yeah, I've got one of my dogs is
bacon. That's what he likes.
One of my dogs is somewhere between 18 and 20 years old, and he's still hanging in there. He can't really see, really hear, but he can sure find that meat when I get it out. So my dogs eat a lot of dried beef. I just buy the beef and throw it in the dehydrator, and they love chewing on dried beef. So they get a lot of dried beef, but they get pork and they get chicken. They get some eggs.
I buy something for him, and they're like these dried chicken sticks. And then I found like a clean dried beef jerky that I keep like on hand, and one in my purse that doesn't have sugar in it and doesn't have a bunch of garbage in it. It's a little bit pricey, but you know, you got to do what you got to do. And so he loves that. So in a pinch, sometimes I give him that as well.
Yeah, I carry around the dried beef with me too, because like when I'm at work and stuff, I don't have to worry about it spoiling or whatever. You know, It's always good to go. So
yeah, that's what I teach people. Always have something with you, even if you're not going to use it. And you know, if you're out, pack a little cooler or whatever. Pack as many things as you possibly could need, even if you're not going to use it. You just put it back in the refrigerator when you get home. You know, but it's better to be prepared than to not be prepared.
For sure. Absolutely. Well, you'll be sure and send me over any links or anything you want me to put in the show notes. Would you like to talk to people about how they can get in touch with you, or maybe where your presence online is or anything like that?
I do a lot more on, Instagram. It's Angie Nutrition on Instagram. And I do some on Facebook. But like I said, I take on, right now I have a couple slots, but I take on 5 clients a month. And what I do is individual one-on-one coaching. I feel that that's the most important. So people get that one-on-one, accountability, that coaching, that help, that encouragement, because a lot of times people just don't really have a good support system. And right now there's so much out there that's conflicting.
Sure.
And you've got so much like on fasting, so much, keto products, all this. So you have to watch, because it's also about making money.
Sure.
So you have to be mindful, and you have to be very careful who you follow and who you listen to and who you let influence, because a lot of these people are desperate to be slim, desperate to lose the weight, maybe not necessarily for the right reasons. I mean, because you got to dig deep in yourself and figure out your whys. It can't just be because you want to look good in an outfit to go to your reunion. It needs to be a little bit more than that, more longevity of, living a fulfilled life, having energy, being able to play with your grandkids, being able to go out and do the things that you love. Because if you're not able to do any of those things, what are you really doing?
Right.
And so that's the reason why I only take on 5. There once upon a time I was taking on a lot more than that. But you can't really give the individualized. And it's not about making money to me. It's about, giving people their life back, helping people and giving them that support system. And when you're able to do that, you've got successful clients. You've got, a nice word of mouth, because people start seeing the other person and how great they feel and what they're doing, and they're able to eat like real food, and they're not having to suck down some kind of shake or green juices and craziness. And I even help my clients if they want to do some intermittent fasting. And I think that some intermittent fasting is good, but when you start getting into long-term fasting, days and days and days, I think you really have to be careful with that.
Sure.
And you have to listen to your body, and you really need to know where your glucose levels are during that time, because starting to get in the 50s and 60s of glucose, you're doing damage, and you really, really need to be careful. Because, if you go to the hospital, they're going to treat you if your glucose is 70. They're going to. But if you're monitoring it and you're making sure you're not getting into really low numbers, but you really can, you can do permanent brain damage. Just like if you go really, really high glucose, you can do permanent brain damage.
Do
So
you
you
have an
gotta
ideal
look at
range
all those things. So I think if you're going to dabble and you're going to play around with those things, you need to have monitors to check.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of monitoring glucose or even ketones. I talk about that a lot. Do you have sort of an ideal range where you like to see people's glucose?
I think when you start playing around and you start getting in the 50s and the 60s, I think you're in trouble.
And what do you think
And
the high
you
end?
can see like even people that are doing that, and I'm not going to go into names or any of those kind of things because I'm not about all that. But if you really watch and you watch like some live videos and you watch people that are fasting, you can see the weakness in the eyes and the weakness in the face when people are not feeling optimal. Those are big things to look at. And I guarantee you, when you see that, that's when the blood sugars are getting really, really low. And what I like to see is like morning blood sugar, like with my clients, I like to see in the high 70s, in the 80s type thing. And usually when somebody first starts with me, say that they're running like in the low 100s, they go into the high 90s very quickly. And like, even for myself, like if I eat a ton of meat or whatever, I might bump up to 92, but it's going right back down. It never goes more than like 92. And I test myself personally just to kind of know. And I stay in ketosis, but I really don't care about staying in ketosis, because staying in ketosis doesn't mean weight loss at all. And a lot of people want to say it does, but it doesn't. I mean, you could go suck down a ton of butter right now or some MCT,
Sure.
and go take your ketones, and you're going to rise. But if you're sucking down that butter and that MCT, and then you're eating 5,000 calories, you ain't losing nothing.
Yeah.
It's not happening.
Yeah. I'm
unless
sure
you
could.
are burning, unless you are just running, and
Right.
burning, and you have tons of muscle in your body, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd take quite a bit of muscle mass to burn off 5,000 calories of fat.
Yeah.
Fat
So
doesn't
I
seem
think,
to have
when you start getting into those type of things, I think it's very individual. I've done it. I've done OMAD. I've done, fasting for a day just to kind of see like how my body feels.
Mm-hmm.
I can do it, but I'm not going to do like extended day fasting. I don't know if my body would do it or not, because I haven't put that through the tests. But from a realistic standpoint, I just don't think it's smart for a lot of people. And especially when you work with clients that have eating disorder backgrounds, I think you're creating that all over again, because an eating disorder is starving yourself. So I think you have to be really, really careful with every individual in that. But I think if you're listening to your body and you're eating when you're hungry, your body's going to tell you. And some mornings you may wake up and you may not be hungry at all.
Right.
And some mornings you may wake up and you're like, oh my God, I'm starving. What is the deal today?
Yeah.
And you need to eat when you're feeling bad, because if you prolong it, you're like, okay, well, it's peaks and waves. It's just going to go away. No, it's not. If you're going to start having a headache, you're going to start feeling weakness. You're going to start having fatigue. So yeah, you might be losing a pound or two, but what else are you losing in the process?
Right.
And then too, I mean, you get in your car and you're driving and your blood sugar is 50. That's not smart. But, I mean, everybody's got to figure out their own path and kind of figure out what works for them. But, any client that I work with, if they want to do any type of fasting or whatever, it has to be monitored, because I'm not putting my name on it.
Yeah. Fasting
that's an individual thing.
Fasting gets into scary territory, especially with people who aren't experienced with it. So.
Exactly. And I think it's very critical. You do need to be fat adapted, and you need to have, been doing a high keto diet or a carnivore diet for a while before you even go that route.
Yeah, certainly being fat adapted makes fasting much easier.
Exactly.
For sure.
And, it depends on your activity level. It depends on what you have going on, because if you're putting too much stress on the body, you're taxing out the adrenals, and too much fasting can be a stress on the body, and you're taxing out the adrenals. So you got to look at that as well.
Sure. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time. I don't know, did you have anything else you wanted to say?
No, I think we're good. I mean, I would love to work with anybody that wants to work with me, that feels like that they need that one-on-one and that support, because I work with lifestyles. It needs to be a lifestyle approach instead of a quick fix. And, it's more sustainable. People have more success. And I just believe that's where it's at.
Well, thank you again, and go ahead and send me over any links you want me to put in the show notes. And I really enjoyed this. It was a great interview.
Yeah, I think we were pretty rounded. We covered a lot of different things, and
Yeah, we covered a lot of ground.
hopefully, what we talked about can help somebody else.
I'm sure it will. I'm sure this will be very popular, and a lot of people will get a lot out of it. So,
Okay.
all right. Well, I'll stop recording now. Thank you.